All right, let's go. Shalom, you're muted.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Decoded Book Review. My name is Shalom, and my co-host is.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. We are really happy to have you here. So, we'll be reviewing Laws of Human Nature, and it's one of the books that we have reviewed before. But before we go on to the book review, let's just try to unmute our mics and introduce ourselves. Anybody? Don't be shy. Let's try to introduce ourselves.
If I was you, I'd probably just call them out, like Hadiza Gomel. I don't know who that is. It'd be nice for you to just tell us your name, what you do, right? And if this was your first time here, someone might be interested in what you do, business, partnership, right? So Hadiza, maybe the start, then Chima and the rest of them. Okay, yes, if you can't speak, you can just go to the chat section and introduce yourself. Yes, you can do that on the chat section.
Well, I'm Lukoya Babatunde. I'm an electrical engineer, and I'm into services consultancy. So that's quite enough.
Service, what do you mean by service consulting?
Mechanical electrical engineering services in buildings.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Mechanical and electrical. Okay. Mechanical includes plumbing and stuff, right?
Yes, plumbing, air conditioning, heating, and all that. And then the electrical aspect, generators, house wiring, and all that. That's what we do.
Okay, interesting. Telling me, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Regards what he does?
Definitely.
Yeah. See why it's good to introduce yourself. We needed some partnership with people who are into contracting. We started an online store for selling building materials and stuff. But maybe one of you reach out to him later and see how you can make that work. Okay, so who else? Okay, let's limit it to the chat section. Please, if you're here, just go to the chat and introduce yourself and what you do. Because we're already eating 15 minutes into the time. So Kwelumi and Shalom and Binko, you guys can go ahead with you guys.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So for those who are just joining us, we'll be reviewing The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. It's an amazing book that we have reviewed before, and my co-host will just be telling us more about it. Follow me.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. We said earlier, and like we said, we've actually reviewed this book before, The Laws of Human Nature, not so long ago. But because we feel like there are some particular laws that we can't talk about just one, so we want to, re-emphasize and then see how we can apply these laws to, our daily living, our businesses, right? So just before we jump right into it, I believe everyone can hear me, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Great. So I'll just be talking about the author, right? Just to give us a little insight so we can, like I like to say, appreciate the book. So the author of the book, Laws of Human Nature, is actually Robert Greene, and he's actually an author that's written books on strategy, on power, and a very, very interesting concept, seduction. Not the seduction we all know, but then the art of seduction. He actually has a book on it, The Art of Seduction. Right. And one actually one interesting thing about this guy is that, there's this particular company, The Independent, it's a news company abroad. They actually regard him as the new Machiavelli, right? That I know we reviewed the book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. So that's like the old Machiavelli. So they regard him as the new So who we refer to as Machiavelli is someone who uses, strange and, I don't want to say evil, but then strong means to achieve what you want, right? So he's actually very, tensed in his books. And one sad thing about him is that he actually died before this book got out, before this book was published, right? He had a stroke. I don't know what caused it, but he died before this book. So this was like his last book, really. He has about 6 books after Seduction, so many more, Laws of Human Nature. But what we can actually garner from him and his stories that he's a very, passionate person, very, very strategic, right? There are about 18 laws in this book, right? And I'm sure we can't cover all 18 laws, right? That's why we decided to break everything
Sorry,
down.
hold on. I have to cut things. Robert Greene dead? No, he's not.
He's not?
No, Robert Greene isn't dead. I'm very sure of that. I'm a huge fan of Robert Greene. I follow him everywhere. I think you might be mistaking him with, we also reviewed his book, Professor Clayton, the Harvard professor who died while he was writing the book. No, he hasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, and also the Machiavelli, Sun Tzu is.
I'm actually looking at his Wikipedia, so that's
actually check that out. Yeah, and
okay. Nevertheless, anyway, so
yeah, go ahead.
What we know from him is a very passionate person. Okay. You're about to say something, Sun Tzu?
No. Go ahead. I was just going to say that The Prince by Machiavelli.
Okay.
Machiavelli is, and by the way, just for people who are joining me on my video, my name is Izu. I'd just usually stand by to just chip in when necessary. This is a project by my colleagues at Hexavian. But if you want to understand strategy, you've got to understand war and human nature. And there are like 4 major people who run strategy, that especially brutal strategy in the history of the world. Just like how you talk about art, you look at the Renaissance, there was Michelangelo, there was Leonardo da Vinci, and there was Picasso, right? Those are like the legends of art. When you talk about strategy, they're like Sun Tzu, who is the oldest. There's The Prince by Machiavelli. There's Machiavelli, and the modern day Machiavelli is actually Robert Greene. So I think that 3 different people and 3 different thoughts, but they all give a brutal perspective to life in terms of power. Like I like to say, as you go higher, it gets colder, right? Competence is key, but competence only ends at the point. As you become higher, you don't have to be more competent. You just have to understand the more power game. The same way the VC of a school is not given to the smartest or the longest serving professor. Is the guy who understands the power game, right? Same thing with politics. I mean, you can understand why we have the worst of us ruling the best of us as a country, right? And that's because some people understand power more than others, right? So, and don't have to look at the book from a brutal perspective, but from the perspective of how to get over people who are brutal, right? Life is a kill or be killed situation. You're either on the table or you're on the menu. If you're on the dinner table, you're eating. If you're on the menu, they're eating you. So it's really a book about that, all right? So Pelumi, I think Pelumi, I've read the book years ago. So this is also a sort of refresher to just sit back and listen to Pelumi and Bimpe and Shalom do this, right? So Pelumi, over to you.
Yeah, really. So thank you for that. So yeah, that's really about Robert Greene. So jumping right in to the laws, right? So I'll hand over to Shalom to
Okay, thank you so much, Pelumi. Thank you for that brief introduction, and also Mr. Izu for giving us insights into the book. Like Mr. Izu said, for you to understand, it's very important for people to understand strategy and power, because of even as business owners, it is essential to our day-to-day life. So because of we don't have much time left, we're just going to jump right into the book, and then we're going to be reviewing 6 laws: the laws of irrationality, narcissism, the law of role playing, and 3 other laws. So let's just jump right into it. So the book tells us, the book's opened by telling us that, okay, we have to understand human nature, really. So the name just tells us about the book, the laws of human nature. Okay, and let's start with an example. Okay, maybe we have okay, Mr. Tolani and Mrs. Tolani are married, but Mr. Tolani doesn't know that Mrs. Tolani is having an affair. We have Mr. Jude and Mr. John who are business partners, but Mr. Jude does not know that Mr. John is ripping him off or is basically scamming him. So why do people act the way they do? Basically, this book answers the question. And like my co-host said, there are 18 laws. We're going to be reviewing 6 today. And the very first one that we're going to be reviewing is the law of irrationality. Okay? So we start by saying that a lot of people do not know how their emotions direct their life. Basically, their emotions control their life. A lot of people are not aware of that fact. And it's mind-blowing to know that because of you let emotions rule your life and control your life, you are prone to acting in rash and irrational and in the ways that you are not meant to act. And I'm always going to refer back to business owners because this is what the group is all about. And I know that majority of us here are business owners, successful entrepreneurs, and we all agree to the fact that nobody will act rash or take rash decisions or not thinking through things will actually have a successful business. No one who doesn't do business based on fact and logic will have a successful business. So that is why Robert Greene outlined that rational people are know that okay, people take actions based on their emotions, and because of they are aware of these facts, they put things in place to stop them and limit them from actually taking those irrational decisions based on just their feelings. But rational people are not aware of these facts, and they just do things based on based on my art. You hear this saying that follow your art, and that is a bad saying. I would say no business owners should follow their art just because of their art is telling them to. Okay, so I already outlined that okay, people take actions based on their emotions, but how do we actually put limits in place to actually not make decisions based on our emotions, to actually not allow our emotions rule and control us? And this book explains that in 3 steps, okay? How to be rational in our decision. Number 1, it tells us to recognize the biases. And it's in this step 1, it actually breaks it down to about 7 other biases. Number 1 would be confirmation bias. Now we see it everywhere we go to. Okay, whenever we believe in a fact, whenever we believe something to be true, we always find facts, opinions, from something that will just back us up without actually looking at the other side. We are not open to seeing other people's views. We're not open to see any other thing that will contradict our belief. So that is one. Hello?
Yes,
okay.
We hear you. Yeah.
Okay. So that is one aspect of bias, and it tells us that one way to counter that would be that whenever we believe so strongly in something, it's always good to look at the other side and not just go on a straight road, but actually look to the other side and see, okay, why are these people thinking in this way? That is how a rational man thinks, or how a man that would like to be rational would think. We move on to convictions. We tell ourselves that, okay.
I'm sorry, please, before you go ahead, I like to go on pardon me by chipping in between.
No problem,
about
sir.
how powerful the first law is, about we being emotional, right? A lot of people want to take pride in thinking that they are logical, right? It's always a thing of honor to assume that you're logical. But guess what? The book actually tells you that by human nature, we're not logical beings. there's a lot of things we do every day that we don't know is logical, right? It's like how you leave your house and stay 2 hours in traffic just to see a movie that you could have watched on Netflix, just want to go to cinema. As a matter of fact, I was in a place that's in Banana Land and we're just having word conversation, and someone in Banana Land was telling me how this one time, and this is somebody who I would assume is really smart and intelligent. I mean, he's very successful for him to live in that type of place. And he said a few years ago, he was dating this girl, right? The girl, he lives in Banana Land and works in VI, right? And then he was dating this girl who lived in, I think, Yaba or so. Guess what? Right now, he works in Banana Island. He lives in Banana Island, works in VI. This girl lives in Yaba, works in Lekki. Do you know how strange and how funny this conversation is? That every morning he would drive his car to Yaba to pick up this girl, to drop in Lekki before he goes to work in VI. Right? It's just very, if you know how the distance in the morning, right? First of all, he wakes up at 4:30 just to get to Yaba to pick up. There's no logic in that, but that's the human nature at play. When we are in love, we do very dumb and daft things, right? And sometimes it's not even boy-girl stuff. It's the things you buy. I mean, most of us have bought things that we really don't need because of how they made us feel. I mean, if you've ever been to a party where the live band hyped you and you came to spray money, even though you didn't plan to spray money there, or people who do Dorime, go to nightclubs to spend 2 million in one night. And the thing about it is you can't even say that anybody is stupid because we all are in just different expressions of the same stupidity, right? I mean, you might think it's funny that somebody goes to a particular place, right? Because it's not your thing, right? Oh, so you don't understand why somebody has a herbalist, for example, but then you also drive 3 hours to stay in traffic just to go to Shiloh, right? It's all the same coin, just different expressions. You think that there's only one place where if you stay there, you have conviction, which is what she's saying. When you have conviction, you follow your heart. But here's the thing in business, right? Follow your heart is good, but people who leverage on and make a killing is not people who follow their heart. It's people that build businesses that help people follow their hearts, right? So you can either be a victim of it or you can take advantage of it, right? You might need to mute your mic, right? So I think that's really key in itself. So first of all, by human nature, walk around knowing that human beings are emotional than logical. Once you know that, as a salesman, you appeal people's emotions more, right? 90% of the thing you try to sell through logic, you could sell it better in your product, right? Just through emotions. So I'll give a practical example. If I go to a meeting, right, and I'm meeting someone the first time, right, and I hear the person talk a lot about his wife in a meeting, the next time I'm going to have a meeting, I'm going to buy a gift for the wife and I'm going to give it to him. I say, oh, for example, he's talking about how my wife likes to read books, right? I'm going to stop at anywhere. If I travel abroad or whatever it is, I can go to Barnes and Noble, right, and buy him an original copy of, let me give an example, you're talking and your wife says, oh, your husband says, oh, my wife is such a Robert Greene fan. I would buy you a Robert Greene book, autographed by Robert Greene, and I'll give it to you. The truth about it is the decision of whether you're going to use my product or not, sometimes not dependent on the man, it's dependent on the woman. I had a very crazy conversation yesterday about the elections and how Tinubu became the flag bearer of APC. The least expected trigger was the trigger, right? There was just one person he needed to buy over, and when he bought that person over, everything fell in place, and it was the wife of the president, right? So you see, emotions once again. And I was telling somebody, as a man gets older, his wife gets stronger. I don't know if anybody's realized it. If you have your dad and mom still alive, you see how your mom has become more an important figure in your dad's life than he used to be while you were growing up. I mean, he controls his diet, he controls everything. He literally depends on him as you get older. So people start to understand that. You'll be shocked at how men, at some point, a man can begin to get to his children through his own wife, right? So that's how emotional we are. So remember, by human nature, whether you're male, whether you're female, whether you're black, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Asian, we are all non-logical beings. We are emotional beings. So appeal to people's emotion and you get anything you want. You try to get money from people's pockets. How about you getting it from their hearts? Because the heart is where the money really is and not their pocket. Once you get to their heart, it's easy for them to dip their hands in the pocket to pay you. Right, I just wanted to chip that in. Shalom, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for that. It just made me to remember one thing that the book actually highlights, and it says that pleasure is the enemy of man, basically. And a lot of people do things based on pleasure, based on their feelings, and based on what their body or emotions are telling them. And I think that Mr. Izu has perfectly explained that. Now we're quickly going to move through the bias, and we're going to move to fiction. Appearance. One thing I would like to outline is that in appearance bias, it tells us that we attribute certain characteristics to people based on how they dress, or maybe on how the family they come from. That's just an example, or because they have one particular good example. I will see it now. People will address people just based on maybe you're wearing a Prada shoe, or you're wearing very expensive clothes, you carry yourself properly. So that appearance bias, it just tells us that people are not always who they seem like or who they look like, basically. Should get to know people more than just their appearance. It moves to group bias. Group bias just tells us that people in certain groups are kind of, okay, for example, let me just give an example. We have friends, and then we have a group of friends who are very powerful, business forward. We have people who are shaking the economy. So a lot of people would like to get into that group. And because someone is in that group, if they are being treated differently or people address them differently. So it tells us that just because of people are seen with certain people or are perceived to be in certain groups doesn't mean that we should just think that that is who they are, or we should get to know them better. Moves through superiority bias, blame bias, that we are more likely to blame others than to actually look into the mirror and blame ourselves. Now, step 2 tells us inflaming factors. Now, what are these inflaming factors? This just tells us that we should stay away from people who bring out certain characteristics that we don't want. And I'm going to mention these characteristics. Now, for example, triggering points from childhood. Now, everyone has something in their childhood that whenever they are around certain things, or whenever they hear or they see certain things, it just brings out these kind of, maybe character or childish insensitivity or something. And it tells us that we should stay away from inflaming factors. We move on to sudden gains and loss. So people act differently because of they have lost something, or maybe they have lost close relatives, and then they lose their business, or they suddenly get access to a big amount of money, and that just changes their character. So that tells us that we should, certain things actually influences people's behaviors. We move on to rising pressure. There's so once there's a lot of stress on people, once a lot of people are exposed to a lot of activities that they are not usually used to, it kind of changes their character as well. We move to group effect that some people, when they are being isolated from certain groups that they have been in all their lives, it kind of brings out something in them that they just feel depressed, really. For example, they are not able to contribute to certain things because of the certain groups they are in are developing faster than they are. So that just brings out certain characteristics in them that usually are not there. So so we have talked about these biases, and maybe someone would just like to chip in something to tell us an example of someone they seem to have possess this character of biases, or being influenced by these biases.
Yeah, please feel free to contribute. This is a book club, it's a community actually. As time goes, we're going to explain the undertone of this initiative and expression, right? It's also always going to be free, but we want to create a network of people who love books and a support group for helping people get smarter. So please, you're going to do me 2 favors if you're here. First is please go and introduce yourself on the chat section. We really need to know you, what you do, and if you have any business challenge, you can share it. Please, it's mandatory once you join the chat to introduce yourself, right? Somebody might need your service here, for example, right? And then 2 is we are very social, so we would expect that if you can, this is optional, please turn on your videos so it's more interactive. It also helps the energy of my colleagues who are doing the book review, knowing that, oh, you're very attentive. You see, just when Temi turned that video, I didn't know that this was Temi, the same Temi. You see, Temi, I haven't seen you in months, right? So
yes,
yeah, right. So it's always good, right? So let's catch up. See, now I'm recognizing people who I didn't know they were the ones. So if you can, if you're in a convenient place, turn on your video and please contribute to the sessions, right? There's nothing like this book doesn't concern you. It's human nature, it's a human being, and the book concerns you absolutely. And I like this. I think my favorite is the first law, basically. And every Robert Greene book, I'm a huge fan of Robert Greene. I've read all of Robert Greene's book, from the 48 laws of power to 33 strategy of what, to the laws of seduction, to the law of human nature, to the book of 50th law. That was the book he wrote with 50 Cent a few years ago, right? And I think the most recent book is, his most recent book is actually the law of human nature, and then the book called Mastery, right? And all of his books have a brutal perspective to things, kill or be killed, right? So please, if you have any conversation, any contribution with the first law before we move to the second one, we were talking about the law of irrationality. Is there someone you know who's very irrational? I don't think you are not. If you ever, let me put this in context, if you ever cried in a movie before, if you ever cried while watching a movie before, you know you're irrational. Because first of all, you know the movie is not real. You know that they're acting, but you still went ahead to cry. If you've ever parked your car because somebody did a small scratch that you know that the person would never pay for that scratch. And I see this all the time in traffic. It's still something that I thought would never happen to me till it happened to me. Where somebody scratches you, you come out and rake and shout, and later you're wondering if it's really worth your time, and that's explains how irrational we are, right? We make decisions based on that, but does anybody have any contributions on irrationality before we move to the second law? Okay, we have a lot of chilled people who don't want to talk. You can drop it on the chat section if you want to, but just unmute your mic and share or ask a question. You can ask a question about maybe how can you be less irrational, right? Which I think is a skill that a lot of people haven't realized, right? As a matter of fact, I think one of the first things a man has to do is understand himself. And should I say here that their first question?
Yeah, hello?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. Ako. Oh, okay.
Mr. Okay.
Hello?
You need to unmute yourself, sir.
Hello?
Yes, go
Can
ahead.
you hear me now? Okay, all right. Okay, I just wanted to contribute concerning the law of irrationality. In the form of a question, are there levels to the irrationality, or is it that everybody's on the same cadre? Reason being that I'm asking is, okay, like the examples you mentioned, crying in a movie set and the likes. Okay, I agree with that. But then when it comes to some top level power tussle, like for example the Ukraine Iranian stuff, where somebody will just wake up and feels like I can encroach somebody else's territory and there's nothing you can do about it. So such irrationality and then crying over a movie, I don't want to believe that they're on the same level. So according to the book, I've not read it. Are there levels to it, or it's just a generic kind of a thing?
So I would like to answer that question. Mr. Izu, would you want to answer it, sir?
We'll take a shot first at come after you.
Okay, so Mr. Ethan, once you continue listening to us, we're going to explain something called there's kind of a line or a measurement of people who are irrational. We have people who are self-lovers, so they are so absorbed with themselves that they are not aware of anything happening around them. We have another metric which everyone, basically, majority of us are on. So people, they may not want attention, but when attention is placed on them, they would absorb it and they would like be in the moment. And there's some people who are in the finals, the extreme end, who are empathetic and they don't want attention at all. So this level of irrationality, this measurement of irrationality, there are a lot of people on different stages of that measurement. And for someone who feels like, okay, he has all the power to just encroach on someone else's land, that's another level of irrationality. That person feels so power absorbed. It feels like I am perfect, or maybe not perfect, but I have so much power that I feel like I can encroach on you and there will be nothing that you can do about that. So there's always different levels and stages of irrationality. There's nobody that is on the same stage. Not everyone's on the same stage, I would say. So that is my own opinion about that. Mr. Izu, would you like to contribute?
I think one theory, there are a lot of theories that help you determine how irrational you are, right? From the ocean theory in HR to the Myers-Briggs theory in psychology to temperament. In fact, temperament gives away different degrees of irrationality. So some people are more by their temperament. I don't know if anybody knows what temperaments are here, right? There are different degrees of irrationality based on your temperament. For example, I would assume that I'm not a very irrational person, but I'll be wrong because everybody is irrational, but we have different degrees. I'm choleric, right? Cholerics are bold, decisive, very logical, right? But there are people who are a bit different, right? There are people who their spectrum is higher with irrational. If there's a movie, I'm not likely going to be the person that will cry in a movie. But that's not to say that once upon a time I've never cried in a movie, but I'm not going to say Titanic and start crying, but then that still doesn't mean that, and I think the only way to put context into this is celebrities. You see some celebrities are very, unassuming. I mean, if you look at a Will Smith, right, next to a Burna Boy, you see the different degrees of rationality, right? I mean, Burna Boy carries himself sort of like, I am war, if you know what I mean. I mean, I can't love kind of person. You see Will Smith walk into a room, he's a lover just by design, right? Even though that has gotten him into trouble recent time by slapping people who should not be slapping, right? But you see how irrationality is. But let's not even look at this thing in just emotions. I want us to keep drawing back to the fundamental, which is business, right? You're selling your business too hardly, because you're trying to sell the functionality of the business. Look, you're selling a car. People are not going to buy the car because of the function. It moves faster than another car, right? That's not why. So people buy Lamborghini, right? Ferrari, because they tell you that it does maybe 280 kilometers per hour. But how often do you really drive a car for 280 kilometers per hour? If you buy a Ferrari in Lagos, which traffic would you do 280 kilometers per hour, first of all? Where? But people still go ahead and buy a Ferrari because of the emotional feeling of it, right? I once went to a dealer to buy a car, and he sold me a car in the most interesting way. You know, a simple question he asked me, right? Are you going to be sitting in front more, or are you going to be sitting at the back more? If you want to move, if you want to sit at the back more, you should buy this car. If you want to sit in front more, and I didn't realize every car has that thing. Like a Toyota has a Corolla and a Toyota has a Camry, right? Honda has an Accord and Honda has a Civic. The space in an Accord is more at the back. The space in a Civic is more in the front. So you start to see, so there's what you call an owner's car and a driver's car, right? And you want to see why a Mercedes-Benz advert probably has more women in it than drivers. Now, I can see a whole Mercedes-Benz ad for 1 minute, and it just maybe 10 seconds of that 60 seconds that they're showing you the car. Other thing, they're showing you a beautiful woman, because most men buy cars to please people, not to please themselves, right? It's like, so once again, we're all emotional. We make decisions by emotions, right? So I think that's a better way to look at it. We're not doing too well with time for in the first law, so let's move on. Does anybody have any questions or contributions?
Yeah, so there are questions in the chat box. There's actually one. So how do you this is from Ogak Patak Patak. Okay, okay, no problem. This is from Ogak Patak Patak. How do you differentiate from being irrational to insanity? My thoughts is that there's a thin line between insanity and irrationality. Please clarify.
I think it's a curve. Once it passes a threshold, it's the same thing actually. Irrationality, insanity is the extreme end of irrationality, right? So you can be very happy. That's your irrational self showing up. But you can be too happy, right, that you jump off a building. You just want a lot, you're like, oh my God, right? Or you can be angry, that's being irrational, but you're so angry that you kill somebody, and 1 month, one hour later, you can't believe you killed somebody. You see, matter of fact, temporary is extreme. I think that I just said it the best. Extreme irrationality is insanity, and a lot of people don't know where to draw the line, right? A lot of people don't know where to draw the line, and I think that you have to intentionally create that, right? Create a threshold, right, of how extreme you won't be, right? And put yokas around your life, right? That stops you from doing certain things. Like, for example, I told myself I'm not going to send a text message when I'm angry, right? A lot of people get angry and next thing they send text messages, because most of the time you come back to that text message, like when your brain has come back to sanity. Remember, extreme irrationality is insanity. You're like, is it worth it? I've learned to take walks, right? When I'm upset, even in the office, sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm taking a walk. I'll just walk around the estate and I'm back. And I just realized that it's not worth that. I've learned to ask simple questions like, this thing I want to do now, is it going to matter in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years? And you'll be shocked at what the answers are, right? So just poka yoka, anyone can read up what poka yoka is as a structure for putting those barriers.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir. So quickly finish up the first rule. And it tells us that lastly, the last stage will be that we should get to know ourselves thoroughly, examine our roots. What do you think are the causes that brings out this irrational behavior? Increase your reaction time.
Sorry, before you go ahead, I just read someone's WhatsApp chat and I think it's important what he asked. Okay. How do you create structures, right, to ensure that you don't get past your level of insanity? First thing, and I said this several times in this platform, business, marriage, friendship. Don't ever go into any of this with anybody that the person does not have somebody reports to. I say that again. Don't marry someone who you don't have somebody you can report that person to should anything go wrong. Don't go into a business partnership with somebody who, if push comes to shove, right, you don't have anybody you can report to, right? A lot of people have what I call a dangerous level of freedom. You know that dangerous level of freedom is that freedom where you say, it's my life, I can live it how I want to live. Right. And I think that's what's driving excessiveness even in Nigeria, right, with a lot of things, right? So I think that one of your structure personally is have somebody you're accountable to as an individual. It saves you a lot of stress. I'll give you a practical example. I was 19, right? I started a business around that age, and I made money in, I think 19. I was still in university then, and I was going to buy this is the 19-year-old. I was going to buy a car. I lived in my parents' house, and the only thing that stopped me from buying that car was my mentor. I bet you, I was thinking about it now. If I bought that car, I probably would have dropped out of school because I can see where the connection is, right? I would have gone to school with a car at 19. Just having somebody that, because that's an extreme irrationality, is you've got to show people, because a lot of people are interested in looking rich than actually being rich. I was going to fall into that trap of looking rich than being rich. So you want to use your whole money to go and buy a car, just because you have that one person in your life, right, who you can. I was reading this Will Smith thing about when he slapped someone. The first person that called him was Tyler Perry. And anyone that knows the Black community knows how much they respect Tyler Perry. But Tyler Perry got off the phone. Tyler Perry called the guy he slapped. What's his name now? Is it Chris Rock? Right, Chris Rock, right? And there was the only reason, let me tell you how bad it was. Chris Rock was first of all going to Will Smith would have gone to jail effortlessly because there's no need for evidence. Everybody saw him slap somebody. That's an assault. He would have been arrested right on the spot. Right on the spot, legally. But just because there was an intervention by, and everybody has to have that circle. So, and that's why I say even in business, irrationality, for your irrational behaviors you do in your business, do you have somebody that even your employees can report to? I've seen people make very daft decisions, even as a consultant. I've seen my clients make very daft decisions. I'm fighting one now. I mean, the person like, and I'm like, how? But first thing I'm looking for is somebody that he knows and respects that can listen to him, because he's not listening to anybody, right? I mean, I'm saying it's too much detail to give, but everybody has got to have that structure in their lives, right? And I think that that's really key in itself.
Thank you so much, sir. Because we're out of
I think we go for another 30 minutes. I think we go for another 30 minutes, if you guys don't mind. So you can take at least 3 more of the laws, because we're just in one law, and that's how interesting this book is. So you can now understand why we brought back the book. We had read the book before. We've done a review of this book before, but we're reviewing it again based on popular demand. People wanted it back because you are a human being. How can you not know your nature? So that it doesn't stop you from achieving what you want to achieve. I think that's pretty much what it is. And then so that you can take advantage of people who don't know their nature, right? So you can ride on that tide.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Palumi, are you there? Palumi will take us through the next law quickly.
Okay, so yeah. Hi, everyone. Hope you're enjoying this session. Okay, so like we always like to say, please introduce yourself. I've noticed that a couple of people have joined us. We're reviewing the book, The Laws of Human Nature by Greene. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the comment section. Just tell us about yourself, what you do. Okay, I can see a couple of interesting comments here. Okay, so now the next law that we'll be taking, okay, is the law of compulsive behavior. Right, the law of compulsive behavior. And please, my section is going to be very engaging because I'm going to involve us more. I'm going to ask questions. Okay, so I'm going to start with this. So I'm going to list 4 things, 4 traits, really, and I want to see which you would pick, right? Because this is all about, I'll try to relate this to, building a team, or, relating with people, what you should do, what you should not do. So reputation, beauty, intelligence, and character. Which would you go for first? Reputation, beauty, character, and intelligence. Which would you go for first? Anybody can answer. Just let me know what you pick first. Yeah, Joseph. Joseph is raising his hand. Joseph, please unmute yourself and yeah.
Joseph, are you there? Please unmute yourself and answer the question.
Okay. I'm guessing that's a mistake. Does anybody want to go? Okay.
I'll go for character.
Character. Okay.
In what context, by the way? In friendship, in business, because the context matters too, don't you think?
So I said at the beginning that we'll try to relate this to building a team.
Oh, okay, in business, yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So what you said, you go for character, right? Checking. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So would anybody go for anything different? Anything else? Beauty, intelligence, character, and reputation while building a team. Anybody?
Can I speak?
Yes, please do.
Okay, I would have chosen character, but let me just hope for reputation. I cherish your reputation a lot. Let me go for reputation.
Thank you so much for the contribution. Okay, so can we take one more person? Nobody wants to choose beauty. Okay, hi, Amomi. Hi.
Yes, I'll go for character.
Character, thank you. Okay. So thank you guys for your contribution. But what this second law, the law of compulsive behavior, what Robert was trying to tell us is understanding people's character. And to be honest, while you're building a team, it actually doesn't if intelligence matters, that's great, right? Beauty matters. I might need someone to, I need to go out with you to do a presentation. How you look, how you appear, that actually matters, right? What you have in your brain, that matters. Your reputation, it definitely matters. But the first thing, and I feel like one thing that actually overrides all these things is character, right? Someone with a bad character can do irreparable damage, right? And I feel like not just even building a team, even when you're relating with people, friendship, anything, right? Having someone with a very good character actually pays. And one thing to understand is how do you know? Remember I said we're relating to building a team, right? So how do you know somebody's character? Besides, did you want to say something? Or
Firstly, yes, the law of compulsive behavior. That's what we'll talk about, right?
yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. So first thing I noticed in the law of human nature, and I noticed this. And if you know this and know peace. 99% of the time when something happens, when somebody does something, they will do it again. Human nature, rarely do we do things just once. Right. So let me give a good example. You are with a staff that steals, right? And you catch the staff. Chances are that the staff will steal again. Right? Human nature, and that's compulsive. By human nature, we're compulsive, we're repetitive. Human beings are habits, we have habits. Matter of fact, the mind is designed by God to, you know why habits? The mind is a very lazy, the brain is one of the laziest organs, right? The brain saves something so that you can do it again and again. Is what is really the manifestation of that in psychology, what you call habits. So for example, you pass a road, right? You pass the road again. There are like 5 ways to get to your house, but notice you follow the same road all the time, right? It's the reason why after a while you become left-handed or right-handed. When you're born, you can use your left and right. After a while, your body saves, like your brain doesn't want to bother itself. So it saves the template, so you can use it over and over again. So you know what that shows me is that people repeat actions over and over again. Let me give you a good example. You're dating someone and the person hits you, and you said it's just once. You want to do a research in 10 years after, if they get married, and find out whether it was just once he hit the person, right? And so also is good with good things, right? So I think that really sums up compulsive behavior, understanding that by human nature, we're repetitive, right? We do things consistently and repetitively, right? It's just how things work, right? So one of the things it does for you as a sales or a business person is understand trends. Yes, it looks like stereotyping, but there's a place in prejudice. There's a place for prejudice and stereotyping in life, right? How then do people create new products? How then do people create projection of how much they will sell? Wait, the iPhone, when they launch, they're going to launch the new iPhone 14, right? The guys in their finance and research department can tell you an average of how many iPhones they will sell because of a trend. They know the same type of people that use the iPhones. They know how they use the iPhones. They know how people drive things. So I think you want to pay attention to patterns. Human beings by design are made on patterns. So have you wondered how people use your service? How do people use your service? A good idea of this compulsive behavior is supermarkets. A supermarket knows how people buy. So they know, for example, that if you buy, it's 4 o'clock. If you buy, and even when you go online, you see it with Amazon. When you buy something on Amazon, the next thing that pops up is relative to what you buy, right? That's the reason why they put cigarettes next to the alcohol section, right? They put diapers next to the baby food section, right? Human beings are compulsive. We do the same thing over and over again. We all have an element of OCD, right? What you call obsessive compulsive disorder. We all have OCD, actually. OCD in different things. So why some people OCD is very clearing, like they like to arrange their things, right? Some people OCD, you don't know when to stop, right? So I think that for me, that's my contribution, that understand, know this and know peace, that human beings are repetitive in order. And this is, I was telling somebody something. We hire only people that made first class in Hexavian, right? So this 3 weeks ago, some guy showed up. I was impressive. I made a 2-2, right? And I said, okay, let's take a chance on this guy. And when the guy was leaving the office, I told my colleague that this guy is brilliant, but he's going to have a problem with execution. He's brilliant with actions, with speech. You know, he has great ideas, but he will never execute these things. Matter of fact, we have a rule, you send your report every day. Do you know that the first 2 days of work, this guy did not send his report? I just said, look, guys, let's fire this guy straight up. That people are repetitive in behavior, right? This is your first day at work, you did not send your reports. And I just reminded that, what did I tell you when this guy walked into this place? That this guy is going to have a problem with routine. Now, one thing I've learned, and this is my own trend, is people who made first class understand routine. Because that's even how they made the first class. They read over and over again, right? They did the same routines. If you look at somebody, you follow someone in school who made the first class, you see a routine. You know, he goes to class at a particular time, he comes back at a particular time. His work life cycle, if you draw a graph, you can see that there's a pattern, right? Same as everything else. Like, let me give a practical example. I'm not trying to stereotype, but if a Hausa person gives me his word, I can take it to a bank. Just by design, majority of Hausa people keep their word. More than most tribes in Nigeria. Whether good or bad, that's why I'll be worried if a Fulani person says, I will kill you. I will really be worried. Right? The same way I will be happy if a Fulani person says, I'll give you 1 million by tomorrow. You don't have to ask a Fulani man for 1 million naira tomorrow. He will give you that 1 million naira tomorrow. So you see how patterns show you something. Same thing, I can say that for other tribes and things that they're very good at. Right? You know, so, and I think that that's pretty much what this commission is about. Let's move on, guys.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Izu, for the contribution. Okay, and like I said, we are talking about the second law, which is the law of compulsion. Okay, and we're also looking at this and relating it to, you know, building a team. Okay, so moving now from what Mr. Izu said, one way you can identify people's character is by repeated actions, right? That's just a summary of what he said. So I'd like to ask another question. Okay, so now we know we have personality types. Okay, one thing we like to do in Hexavian is before you can work with us, we try to tell you to take a personality test. Let's just know who we're working with. So in a team, okay, you're trying to build a team, say a team of just 2 people. Okay, would you rather have 2 extroverts, 2 introverts, or a mix of both? If you're answering, you tell us what you would choose and why you would go with that. So would you rather have 2 extroverts, 2 introverts, or a mix of both? Anyone? We'll just take one person just because of our time.
A mix of both.
A mix of both. Okay, why?
The reason is so that if there is need for an extrovert in a particular project or something, that the person can take the lead. Meanwhile, if there is need for a reserved person for a particular, then the introverted person can take the lead. That's the simple reason.
Okay, solid. Thank you, Mr. Banji, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so this just boils down to knowing who you want, right, on your team and studying their character. That is very, very important, right? So Robert Greene actually talked about some toxic traits, some toxic characters that you should watch out for in people. Okay, like I said, how would you identify that? Okay, this person is actually toxic. It's when they're actually, you know, repeating their actions. It becomes their character. You know that, right? So another tip I can give you is before you bring anybody on board, tell them to take a personality test. I mean, you need to know who you're working with, right? So the first character is the hyper-perfectionist. The hyper-perfectionist. Now, I feel like there's a difference between someone who is a hyper-perfectionist and someone who just likes perfection, okay? Because hyper-perfectionist is someone who's a control freak. He doesn't like to delegate. That's different from someone who, you know, always wants things, you know, orderly, who wants things to be done as soon as possible. But someone who's a hyper-perfectionist will not delegate. The chances that he will delegate are 0. I was just reading an article on someone, I really can't remember his name. Okay, he actually, his mom and his dad died, right, early into his life. And that actually affected him he built a company, having to delegate. He always had, he just never had to delegate. And he really did not even live long. Before everybody knew it, he also died. And also, I'm not saying that people will die if they don't delegate, right? Just to light down the poor. Always like to delegate. So that's one thing you should actually look out for in people. Is that, do they always want to be in control? You have 7 tasks to do, right? Would you want to do all 7 when you have people who really aren't doing anything? Okay, so that's the control freak. Okay, that's the hyper perfectionist rather. So the second, I'll actually be giving a couple of characters. I want to go to this one because I want to engage us again. So the second one is the big talker. Now, these are people who like to talk, but never act, right? Never finish or never act on what they're talking about. I'll give you a good example. For example, say this AC, you walk into a room where it's in, right, and then you see that this AC is faulty. And you're like, oh, shoot, why this place is so hot? Why is this AC not working? Get this AC fixed and that's all. The next person he comes, says the same thing again, right? But you know that's a big talker, right? Because he doesn't like give you actionable points that, okay, you get this, do this, right? Call someone to fix this thing and do all that. He just keeps his observations and makes comments every time that this thing is not that, this thing is not that. You guys can't fix this. Do you get? But you're not trying to, bring out action points from that. That's how you know a big talker. And you really want to avoid people like that from your team. And it actually boils down to just simple stuff. Okay, why do you always have to just keep talking and keep talking? Why not just okay, let me even sit down, let's bring out actionable points from this, right? Those are kind of people that you want to avoid in your team.
Okay, before you go, let me just give a hack on something about personalities. One thing I learned is because human beings have patterns, human beings are repetitive, rarely they do things once. Matter of fact, there's a quote in the book that says people don't change. People don't change. Their mask just falls off. Right? People don't change. Their mask just falls off. Like, this thing people say, oh, you changed. It's not being like they've changed. Their mask just fell out. So somebody, for example, you don't know he's a spendthrift because he's always been broke. All of a sudden, he has money and you say he has changed, just spends money anyhow. No, it's not that he just spends money anyhow. The veil of poverty was just removed from his face. So this is what I've learned. You want to hire a staff in the context of business, talk to his former boss or her former boss, right? Say, would you be okay? And I still had this conversation with someone of recent. I said, oh, have you spoken to his former boss before you hire? Because you see, what a former boss will tell you, of course, we all know Nigerians, sometimes some people practice witchcraft without knowing. So you might just want to bring the person down. But even in that bringing the person down, you still see a fundamental that he's saying. Even with dating, see, sitting down for a drink with someone's ex, right, can help you determine whether or not you should marry that person. See, what an ex, right, will tell you in 10 minutes, right? Dating somebody for 6 months might not tell you that, right? So for me, that's a hack. Now, for people who talk and who are sort of narcissists, right? People who are full of themselves and think that the world revolves around them. And everybody actually has a spectrum of narcissism, right? Narcissism also is a spectrum. Matter of fact, in this book, there's actually a whole law called the law of narcissism. Am I right? Right? There's a law called law of narcissism. Say, before you call another person a narcissist, we all are in different expressions. Now, one thing I have figured out is to end conversations with what do you think? It's a hack, right? So I have my views. I want to tell you my views, but I've learned to carry people along by ending that my view with what do you think? You see people adjust their body by body language when you say what do you think, because there's some level of inclusiveness, right? Using the word we as against I is a hack, right? So I think that's a hack also, right? So personality test. There's a guy called John Gottman. I don't know if everyone knows John Gottman. John Gottman is a marriage counselor, right? He has this app, right? And of course, one of the most successful psychologists of all time, marriage counselor of all time. He saved a lot of celebrity marriages, a lot in the White. I think he's been a consultant to the White House for years on marriage, But somebody was saying that I think America has never had a history of a divorce while in the White House. So a lot of people divorce after the White House. But John Gottman has questions he asks people. Now, John Gottman has an amazing gift. He can listen to two lovers, people in love. You know when love is still shocking people. See this talent. He can listen to you in 20 minutes. Two lovers who are so deeply in love without any issue. Listen to your conversation in 20 minutes and predict accurately by 91%. Now, there isn't a lot of things in life that has accuracy of 91%. He can accurately predict whether the marriage is going to last for the next 5 years. 91% accuracy. Now, technology has built a whole studio around him where couples sit down, they plug different cameras, right? And he hears them talk. He tells them talk about their favorite topic. So when a couple comes in and they like dogs, and they start talking about their dog in the house. And they start to argue about the dog. Oh, who barks the dog the best? Who takes the dog out on a walk? Do you like dogs? Oh, I prefer cats to dogs. Just random conversation. And after 20 minutes, he tells you to leave the studio and predict whether or not the marriage will last or not. That's how much predictability humans leave traces and patterns. And funny enough, he actually has metrics that he uses. Right. So I think every CEO has got to have to understand psychology first, because you're dealing with everything around you as a CEO is people. Your customers are people, your competitors are people, your staff are people, even the government and regulations are people. Just understanding people. I don't know if anybody remembers the question I was saying that I once drove a car for four years, right, without papers, and it was strange because I'm always on the road. And I was having a question, I don't know if you guys remember, I was saying that just having hung around checkpoints, I can tell you accurately, right, whether I will be pulled over or not. And the things that still don't make sense to me, like how a policeman pulls you over and you find yourself in a police station. Like, I find that ridiculous. Like, is it that you don't have human interaction? Like, you don't have capabilities to interact decently? You know what you would do that will make a policeman enter your car to tell you drive to station, right? If you've hung around police, you should know a template, right, to what you would say or how you would behave that will end that conversation right there on the spot. And it's not usually bribery, just a decent conversation, right? So I think everybody has got to understand templates to get themselves out of trouble, and templates to get yourself out of trouble, right? Yesterday, I was mediating for something happened in one of the WhatsApp groups that I belong to. I'm an admin, and they pulled me to the side and said, look, these guys have been friends for years. Whatever they had as an issue that got them to fight in a WhatsApp group must be really terrible. So I had to call a meeting for both of them. But in my head, I have a template from mediation. I know what I would say in a conversation to start up a conversation, but the conversation here is simple. There's a template in my head, right? Every great comedian has this. He has these filler jokes that he knows that no matter how boring the crowd is, if he tells those jokes, they're going to laugh. And he keeps it as his arsenal to bring them out at a point where his jokes are not funny anymore. He just pulled them out, right? And human nature, once again, human nature, you know what works and what doesn't work. So, and I think that's a pretty great place, right? Everybody must have templates in their head. Templates for how you start a conversation. If you're a speaker, for example, a public speaker, you must have a template for how you start your speech and a template how you end your speech, right? Right. Are you going to end it with humor? Let me give an example. I like to talk about data, right? Because I've learned that when you spill out data, and there's someone I know who does that a lot now, Peter Obi, Peter Obi will say something and they say, go and verify. He churns out data, right? That's his thing. It must have been something he picked up as a template. Because when people do that, what happens is that to the people that are doing it, they appear as ridiculously smart, which is usually not the case. Right. So some people is storytelling. Some people are great storytellers, right? Great. Jesus was that type of person, right? He tells stories to portray his point, right? So what is your own template? Let's move on.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Isaac, for that detailed contribution. Okay. So yeah, because we don't have time, I'll just run through the toxic traits. I won't explain so much, and because I want to ask us a very controversial question. Okay. So the next type is the relentless rebel. Okay, that's someone who hates authority, someone who, mistrusts people in power, someone who can't tolerate criticisms, right? Those are the people you call relentless rebels. Remember that we're talking about toxic characters people can have. We want to be able to know this so we can know how to build our teams, manage personal relationships, okay? We also have the personalizer who's very, very sensitive and thoughtful. The funny thing is people like these, right? These people think a lot. They take, things into consideration. But the only thing is they're only doing this for themselves, right? So selfish. It takes stuff very, very personally, okay? Those are the people we refer to as the personalizers. Okay, so we have the drama magnets too. So these ones, they do everything they can to turn everything into a drama series, right? You definitely have people like that at work. They really can't work if there's no drama. They try to fight, try to get people's attention just to be dramatic enough, right? I know people who can be dramatic at times, right? Just bringing context into everything, but there are some people who are like the extreme end. We can call people like that toxic because things like this are transferable, right? If you notice that this person is, before you know, one person is dramatic, another person is dramatic. If everybody in your organization is acting drama, please, what are we doing in the organization basically? So that's one toxic personality type, one toxic character. Okay, another is the sexualizer, someone who sexualizes everything. You just see some people start dropping dirty comments. And the funny thing about people like that is that they actually most of them come from a dark place. Okay, because we hear, I think just yesterday, they sentenced the guy that killed this girl that went for an interview. So people who do stuff like that, it's probably because they experienced something in their childhood, when they were young and all that, then they tend to, carry these things out on other people. Okay, so that's another toxic character. So we also have the moralizer, people who condemn something, but then go to the back and secretly do that same thing. Those ones are basically hypocrites, right? We also have the pampered prince and princesses, right? People who act like babies just to get whatever they want. So these are toxic characters, right? So now Robert Greene tells us to run away from people like this. He didn't tell us to try and change them. He just said run away, send them away from your organization. So I'm going to throw this out to the audience. Do you think we should throw away people like this? Do you think we should not have anything to do with them? Or do you think we might have a chance at changing? Mr. You said something earlier about a leopard not changing his spots. But what do you think? Do you think people can be changed? Do you think people can stay enough and then we can try to change them? Okay, rather than throwing them away. So does anybody want to contribute? Do you think people can be changed? Or when you notice somebody is toxic, send the person away like Robert Greene says? Does anybody want to go?
Well, let me chime in. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, my name is Victor. So yes, interesting. Thanks, guys. So I don't really think it's possible to run away from the kind of people that we don't want, right? I think we must learn to live with them. Like in a workplace, there are some real toxic people. There are some really irrational people. You can't, because when I joined, when I was joining, the first presenter was saying, stay away from people like that. It's not really easy. So for me, I think the most important thing is to try and see how you can, just live with people like this in a wise way. Because trying to say, I want to stay away from, I want to run away from, may be an impossible task. That's what I would like to say around that, Pelumi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Victor. Thank you for your contribution.
All right.
Yeah.
So I would also like to say something about Banji Shadari.
Yeah.
Following what he has just said now. So what if it's not workplace scenario? What if this is my sibling? What if this is my mother or this is my father, so to say? So I want to say that my perspective to things like that is that it saves me stress in the sense that now I know you. How best can I manage you? And can I really cope with you? It's a different thing if I can't totally cope. But if I know you and I've worked out a means of best managing you or best channeling your positive side to be positive for the collective goal, why not if not?
Thank you. I really felt what you said about what if it's a family member, right? You can't throw your family members away. So yeah, solid contribution. Mr. Peter, I want to say something too. Do you want to say something, Mr. Peter? Peter Ako?
Yes.
Okay, please go on.
Yes, I wanted to say something. I still want to play the part of avoidance, yes, because there are certain people, the toxicity in their nature of toxicity is not that you trying to manage the person, you are trying to manage the person, and the person is not interested in being managed. This person is coming for you, like literally coming for you, like the instance I gave about some developed some top leaders, for example. And if you still have people around there that the person is not just interested in you staying your lane and me staying my lane. The person is interested in your own lane, if possible, displacing you. So how do you manage such person? So it's not about you managing the person. The person is not interested in being managed. The person is interested in you as a person, in your life, in your business, the person is on your offensive side. How do you manage such person? So it's either you get rid of the person or you completely run away. You cannot cohabit or learn to live with that person. That's just my own line of thoughts.
Can I add my side to this?
Definitely.
Okay. Well, what I want to say on managing anyone that is identified to be toxic is this. The moment an individual is identified to carry such traits, it's a confirmed character. I think the best option is to avoid such individuals. The truth is not far-fetched. Historically, you may end up being a victim of such negative traits. It might just be too late for you to escape because you would have probably found yourself 6 feet below. That not to negate the fact that carriers of toxicity can actually change their character. But if you look at it historically, on an average, they've actually harmed those that lingered with them. So the best option is that if you identify that this guy or this lady is a dangerous person, keep your distance, while you hope that the Almighty God can change such character.
Okay, everyone. Yeah, thank you.
Hello,
Welcome
sorry,
to Hexavian
I have
Safety Tips.
Sorry, I have my hand raised.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. Benjamin, please go on.
Okay, yeah, so I think most of these character deficiencies that you have outlined, if we look at ourselves, all of us, I believe that somehow we may have one or two of them. Sometimes we know and sometimes we don't know. So if we tour the route of avoiding, perhaps we probably would avoid ourselves. We aren't even going to be on this call. But for me, I think as a leader, you probably would need to define your threshold to how much of something you can tolerate. Yeah. So your mindset is towards transforming, towards changing, towards building people that is around you. Even though Izu had once said that people don't change, they will just follow them. But well, there's a very thin line between changing and for me, I just look at it from perception, So somehow people may have a certain perception and they are not like that anymore. Or there are things they used to do before that they don't do anymore. Like for me, I could say to you with all confidence that there are some things I do before that I don't do anymore. So whether you call it change or you call it transformation. But one thing I believe is, as a leader, we probably would have to define our tolerance level or our threshold and build people with define our threshold and have the mindset of building people. Now, if they get to the point of our threshold that we can't handle them anymore, then you probably will consider the option of letting them go. But if you can make the effort of taking them from where they are, no matter the character deficiency, and try building them towards a certain point, I think you'll be able to help them to change their perspective about whatever it is that they have. So my point, the operational word is threshold. That I want to leave with us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Thank you so much, Benjamin. Thank you, everyone. Solid, very, very solid contributions. Okay. I'll invite Mr. Izu just to round up on that, his perspective on whether we should avoid or not avoid. But before we do that, I'm going to invite my other colleague, Lupe, just to talk about Hexavia, just to tell us a few things about what we do here at Hexavia. So we don't just run a book club, right? That's not what Hexavia, that's not the core thing that we do. So she'll just, tell us a few things about what we do. Yeah, over to you, Bingpe.
Hi guys, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
All right. I hope people have been enjoying this book review session because me, I have. Very nice. So I'm going to talk about Hexavia, right? Like Colin said, we don't just host this book review session. We are a business and management consulting firm, right? To help startups, and our focus is on SME, small and medium enterprises. We do business restructuring, corporate restructuring, strategy development, standard operating procedures, human capital development, and so on and so forth, right? We also have a subsidiary that does recruitment, management 360. You need staff for your organization. You are the right people to come and to pitch your ideas to, right? So I'm also going to be talking about Decoded Hangout. You know, this book review is called Decoded Book Review. So we have a hangout I'll do once monthly, every last Friday of the month. It's a business hangout. It's a very interesting concept. Do you want to just relieve yourself from stress? Do you want to unwind? Do you want to chill after the week stress or after the month stress, like I said? Do you want to network? Do you want to just chill and just hang out, right? Then the Decoded Hangout is the place you have to be. It's a totally free event, a very free event. All you have to do is register, and the link will be dropped in the chat box. The link will be dropped in the chat box. We're having one this month on the 29th of August, Friday, 29th of August, and it's going to be at number 273 Kofu Abayomi. I don't know if anybody knows it. It's at VI, popularly known as CCX or the Love Portion. So we're expecting it and hope to see you there. And don't forget to patronize Hexavia. If you have any business idea, you don't know how to put them together, you are the right people for it to come and meet. Thank you very much. Enjoy the remaining.
Thank you, Bingpe. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. So at this point, I don't know whether to hand over to Shalom to round up or Mr. Isu to give his contributions, because we are far into the book review session. Okay, Mr. Isu, do you have any final words just before we round up?
I just want to run us through the key things, because what this book reviews do is to inspire you to read the book, to stimulate you. A book review is never a substitute for actually reading the book. And one of the reasons we should read the book is we probably have covered maybe 2% of the book. There are other laws, like the law of narcissism, right? The law of role playing, right? And I think that's something we want to actually understand. The law of compulsive behavior, the law of covetousness. As human nature, people consistently desire to possess what they do not have. And it's a human nature. We all want what we don't have. The grass, that's why they say the grass is greener on the other side. It's a human nature thing. Remember when that car you wanted to buy, you thought it was like everything, right? You always dreamt about the car. Now you have the car and you don't even like driving anymore, right? Remember you said when you're rich, you're going to do this. Now you're rich. Have you done those things? As human nature, we are attracted to the other side, right? And what that means is that as a businessman, sometimes scarcity creates value. It's the law of economics. So because people love and are attracted to what they can't have, sometimes playing the delay game, right, is key, right? So I give a practical example, just to give you away. If you're on our WhatsApp groups, and by the way, if you're here and you're not on our HBC groups, please signify. If you also want the recording of this video, right, please signify by dropping your email and your phone number on the chat section, right? Also, why I'm having this conversation is, I noticed of recent, I told my colleague something for 3 days straight, we did not post on the groups, right? And guess what? When we posted, we noticed that people had missed us so much. So absence is a powerful tool in human nature. You know how your wife or your husband feels when you traveled and you come back. You know how he feels, right? You know how she misses you, right? But if you stayed long enough, they will not rate you, like Nigerian grammar will say, right? So understand scarcity, right? Sometimes you induce scarcity to create value, right? So the law of covetousness is something you need to know. Knowing when to withdraw, right? It's great. Having a sense of mystery, you see, and I like to always use this example. The Bible is filled with so much mystery, and that's why it's such a powerful book. I don't know if everybody noticed that from age 13 to age 30, there was no recording of Jesus anywhere in the Bible. No part of the Bible talks about Jesus between 13 years and 30 years. We don't know what happened within that age grade. And there's a lot of mysteries. Nobody has seen God. And that's what creates the powerfulness that people have, right? So create a rivalry of desire by being scarce, right? Induce scarcity. There's also a book called Short-Sightedness, right? The human nature by design is short-sighted, right? We don't like to see things that are too far off, right? An average human being will take now for later, right? People who have conquered it become successful, and that conquering it is called the law of delayed gratification. A lot of people don't understand delayed gratification. Let me give a good example. And I do this all the time. I'm negotiating with a client, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? If you're going to pay everything now, I'll give you a discount. If you're going to pay later, the other be a discount, right? And you'll be shocked at how a lot of people would choose. Let me give a good example. A lot of people would choose 50 million naira today, right? Than 55 million naira in 2 years' time or in 1 year time. I think this reminds me of me and Benjamin. We've had this discussion before in this meeting. I don't know if Ben remembers clearly about this. I think there's actually a thing. I can't remember what it's called now. Something discounting. I can't remember what it's called now. It's actually a theory, right? So human beings by design are short-sighted, right? And the most primitive people are, the more short-sighted they become. So this is why the more primitive career paths are, like the lower cadre people in companies are paid wages, right? Because you'll be shocked at how people will behave just because you're holding their money, right? And I'm not telling you to owe people. I'm just saying that your AC guy or your mechanic that you paid complete might never come back to complete your work, right? So sometimes the short-sightedness, right, is just an important part of human nature. But you don't have to be short-sighted because you're going somewhere, right? If you see the people who think on the long haul, I mean, I was telling somebody that I'm sure as far back as 1993, Tinubu had wanted to be president, right? But see this chess game that's taking over 30 years to deliver on, right? And you'll be shocked at how people think long-term, right? Joe Biden, right? The first time he ran for primaries, I think in America, was as far back as 1980 something. Right? People think human beings, the great human beings are the guys that can tell you their next 5 moves. Most people don't think past their first move, but great people think about their next 5 moves, right? And by the way, there's a book we're going to review called The Next 5 Moves. We reviewed it last time, and if you notice there's a trend, we're going to review back all the books we reviewed in the next 3 months, because some people had missed out, some people had joined, right? So please read this book. It's a great book. It's an extremely great book. All Robert Greene books are, right? If one thing I learned from all of the book is that human beings by design are manipulative. Every human being has some level of that, right? There's always that level of inductive reasoning that we do and deductive reasoning. Because of deductive reasoning itself is very manipulative in itself, right? So I think everybody should read the book, not so you can be manipulative, but so that you can identify people when they start to become manipulative. So you can also know how to tackle people. Because understanding people helps you forgive people in advance. You see, somebody told me something that was powerful and said, look, you know you reach a great level of human understanding when you forgive people before they do something wrong. And I think that's the place where God is with us. He forgives us in advance, right? So please read the book, right? Understand the brutal nature of life. One thing I've also learned is that human beings by design, right, right? This world was not designed for perfect and kind people. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with being kind, but being too kind in this world, right? And so what I've learned to do is to be kind, right? But to keep, let me sum it as this, right? You can get a lot done with kind words, but I've learned to get a lot done with the kind words and a gun, right? I'm speaking in metaphors. I'll say that again. You can get a lot done with kind words, but you can get a lot more done with kind words than a gun on the table. Let people know that just in case you have a gun, but still be kind, right? There's no other way that describes this than God Himself, right? I mean, in one part of the Bible, He's the one that is all love. In that part of the Bible, He's the one sending fire to burn people and then sending flood to kill people, you know. And I think that the human nature, right, respects people who are kind, but have the capacity to do damage without doing damage, right? And I think that's just a great way to end this session. If this was worth your time, please go to chat session and encourage my team. And shout out to my guys. This is their initiative, and I find it really amazing. We have a target to do 52 book reviews in one year. So at the end of the year, you could actually say that you have come across 52 books. And I hope that I've inspired, and we have inspired you enough to read a book, right? They said a great leader is the one that inspires you to be more, to learn more, do more, so you can be more. And if that's all we achieve in Hexavian, then we're fine. We are a 14-year deep firm. We have built over 100 businesses, right? Whether it's Essenza, whether it's on top, whether it's iFitness, right? Whether it's New Age power banks and chargers, and over 100 plus other businesses. There's literally no industry we have not restructured or built from scratch. So if you have that great idea, like Dinke said, you know the sure plug, whether it's feasibility study, market research, market intelligence, business plan, systemization, structure, restructuring, trainings, performance management, please come also for our coded hangouts. It's absolutely free. We only run it once a month, right? I'm sure for people that came last time, we had over 1,800 people in that session. It was an amazing stuff, right? So please feel free to come, and don't be selfish. When next you're coming for this event or for this next book review, please tell your colleagues, tell your friends. You cannot be the one that is smartest in the room. Once you know you're the smartest in the room, please change your room. A lot of CEOs are burning down because they're the smartest in their team, right? Your team should not look at, I like to crack a joke to say, I'm the only one on my team that did not make the first class, right, in school. And the reason why is I have mastered the art of surrounding myself with people who are smarter than me and getting things done through them, right? So I respect and I appreciate my guys. Shout out to Big Bay, shout out to Belumi, and shout out to Shalom, who's kept the lights on. And for the other people who are behind the scenes, making sure that things happen. There are only 3 sets of people in every team. People that help you make money, people that help you save money, and people that help you look good. Thank you guys for look good. And if this was worth your time, somebody can unmute the mic and do a vote of thanks. If you have a question before we go, right, please feel free to also ask. I'm dropping our details on the chat session in case you need consulting. Or you have a friend who is doing not too well in business and you think you should talk to us, please connect us to them, right? Yeah, thank you guys. Does anybody have vote of thanks, questions, suggestions?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've been called to stand before the court of law. So you've been accused of an offense.
What was
in
that?
The comment section. So why have you not organized the coded in Port Harcourt from Mr. Victor?
Yes, that was my question.
Wike, is Wike?
You've been in Port Harcourt before. Please come back. Please come back. Awesome, guys. Awesome.
Weekend bad mouth. Well, I've not come to Port Harcourt. Have you guys stopped kidnapping in Port Harcourt?
He has come down. He has come down a whole lot. You can come back, please. Do come back.
That black suit. That
black suit is gone, man. We have fresh air. Black suit is gone. I can tell you that for free. Black suit is gone.
Yeah,
we're looking forward to seeing you soon.
Where it started. Yeah,
I know. Thanks so much, guys. By a vote of thanks, I just can't thank you enough for this. This is interesting. I'm not surprised. I think I've followed the Hexavian brand for quite a good number of years now, although I'm yet to actually do some business with you. but I know you guys you're deep, Izu, you are deep. I remember when this guy on radio, when he was alive, I would never miss that your radio show, B, his name's Charles B, of blessed memory. Man, you've been good. Thank you so much for this. I didn't know this exists. And another request I made was trivia on the Hexavian business tips. Trivia. I used to enjoy trivia a lot. Looks like it's been suspended. I would appreciate if you bring it back to. Thank you so much for all you continue to do for humanity. God bless you guys.
Thank you very much. Who is peeling onions? Who's peeling onions? Yeah, thank you. Quite emotional, but yes, please give that feedback to Lucky. We need to bring back the trivia, and I said that yesterday in our weekly meeting in the office that we need to bring back the trivias, right? So yes, we will bring back the trivia. And just too many expressions that we don't want to bombard people too much, right? We did, but yes, thank you so much. Anyone else? Well,
Well, it looks like we lost Mr. Izu. So this is just to conclude the meeting and tell everyone that thank you so much for coming or attending this Zoom meeting. Thank you so much for attending the Decoded book review. We hope to see you next time. Next time, I'm going to just continue the book and then just continue from the from Law 2. From Law 2, that will be the Law of Narcissism. So it's going to be a very great time. I would really love to see you there. So thank you so much. And yes, have an amazing day, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, sir. Bye.
So officially we're done, but if you want to go on and that's fine. Ladi Itodo, I don't know who you are. Please, at this point, we're done, but you can turn on your video. Let's just check up on each other and chat, right? Dr. Kasim, how have you been? I've been seeing your messages on, I think they're broadcast, quite interesting stuff. Ladi, please, who are you? Itodo sounds like a name I'm very familiar with. I don't know if you've met, have we? Can you guys hear me? Shalom, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir, we can. We can hear you, sir.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think my guys went off as well because I think they're trying to switch over. Oga Kwata Kwata, is this Mr. Solomon? Is that Mr. Solomon? Okay, I'm not sure who it is. So guys, thank you very much for coming through.
Izu, this is IK. This is IK.
Yes. Izu, Oga is Solomon. No, it's Solomon. I've enjoyed myself here.
I think when I meet in the ask of whether my beer make Izu no remember me again.
Izu. Hello?
Looks like we lost him again.
Please tell him that Oga Pata is Architect Solomon. Architect Solomon.
Yes, sir, I will, sir.
I've enjoyed myself greatly, yeah.
Izu, I'm still a certificate-less graduate of Xavier. I'm yet to receive my certificates.
Looks like he has gone off. No, but he's not on the call anymore.
Shalom.
Sir?
Shalom, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. Can hear you, sir.
This is Mr. Ike Chukwu, Devices and Gadgets, Abuja.
Oh, nice to meet you, sir.
Remind me, I was at the last training at Proof Hotel. At Proof Hotel. Please tell Izzy that I'm still waiting for my certificate. Hello.
You were saying, sir, sorry, I had a little bit of internet issue.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. Yes, I can.
I said, remind your boss that up to now, I'm yet to be giving my certificate for all my classes I attended.
Yes, sir, I will inform him, sir.
I'm still a certificate-less graduate of Hexavian Business School.
Yes, sir, I will do that. Yes, sir, I will do that, sir.
Don't forget.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.